Welcome back to Fast Market on the TD Ameritrade Network. I'm Tom White, joined by my co-host Kevin Hinks. Before we get to our cash tag segment, let's take a quick look at the four major indices because they are off from levels that we were talking about as the show started. S&P 500 now only up 0.5%. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.8%. NASDAQ was just red. It keeps bouncing around. It's really thin right now and choppy, so be careful out there. And the Russell 2000 down another percent in bear market territory, off more than 20% from its all-time highs. So we'll continue to watch the markets because they are choppy and volatile today. We've got that VIX back up above 31 at this point, so continue to watch that. All right, let's bring in our next guest for our cash tag segment, and that's going to be Andy Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com. Thanks for joining us today, Andy.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Perfect day to be here, Andy. We've got Apple. Apple's going to move the markets, right? It's such a big component of these major indices. It's pulled back about 10% from its all-time highs. But when you guys look at your data from LikeFolio, is this less about demand? Because demand is there, right? This is all going to be about supply constraint issues through the holidays, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of it. You know, what we saw over the holidays was that Apple did pretty well with its wearable devices and iPad. People kind of moved away from the iPhone and Macintosh that kept things a little bit cheaper, a little bit more giftable, as you can imagine. Pretty normal behavior in terms of the product mix from Apple. You know, I think the one disappointing thing on this chart for Apple is the AirPods being down 6.5% quarter over quarter. The Apple Watch always gets a nice Christmas bump. So, you know, overall, I think pretty normal holiday season for Apple. But, you know, when we look again at the overall trend, you know, things are moving Apple's way. When we compare the number of people talking about switching from Apple to Android, that is significantly lower, or at least pretty flat, but people talking about switching to an iPhone, really nice numbers there. So it tells us that more and more people are getting into the Apple ecosystem, and really that's the key for this company is, you know, not how much they make off of these iPhones, but how it gets people hooked into the ecosystem where next thing you know, they need an Apple Watch, they need the headphones, they start using Apple Pay, something that we're really seeing take off 40% higher year over year as that digital wallet transformation starts to take over. So, you know, I think overall the story for Apple long term, you know, is still very, very positive. One of the best companies in the world. And they're getting more and more people into this ecosystem where they can monetize them, you know, literally every day. And so, you know, one of the best companies in the world long term. Into this earnings, you know, LikeFolio, pretty neutral. I know last time Kevin and Megan from LikeFolio got into quite a verbal battle about it, and Megan was bearish on Apple, but this time we don't have such a bold call. Our earnings score is very, very neutral at this time.
Andy, could this just be, with everything that Apple has going on for it, and I actually think your 90-day moving average of new people switching to iPhone might be the most significant part of your data today. But could this be, from an earnings perspective, what's making you go to neutral is there's just almost no chance that they can match a year ago's numbers, right? There's going to be slowing in revenue. There's going to be slowing in a lot of their numbers, and throw in a little supply chain issues, and Apple will probably do extremely well, just not as well as comparable to 2021. Isn't that really what's looming over this name? You know the numbers are going to be big, and some things will outperform others, and obviously iPhone drives a lot, but aren't we just looking at that it's going to be fine, it's just not going to be as good as last year?
Yeah, I think, you know, those are tough comps, and it's always right. It's always a little bit of a headwind when you have tough comps, especially talking about earnings. And also long term, though, I think just there's supply chain issues, and that'll be a big part, obviously, of the earnings call and the way the market reacts. But for me, I just feel like Apple is missing that next big catalyst, and I don't know when that's coming. I hope it's coming in 2022. I'm not sure what it will be. If they've got one on the horizon, they're keeping it a really good secret. But for me, this has kind of become a little bit of a boring company. All they do is print money at a 40% profit margin quarter after quarter and put billions and billions of dollars into the bank. I'm really ready for something new out of Apple. I think it's kind of the company we all look to for inspiration, technologically speaking, and it's been a little flat recently. So hopefully we'll get a clue about that, as we hear their outlook for 2022.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to get at here, Andy, because you've seen the switch from the revenue generation from, I think it was the iPhone was over 60% at one time, and now it's near 40% as far as revenues as services moves up. And then you've got all these wearables, which were hot this year because, Andy, in early December, I was trying to get a new iPhone, and I couldn't. And then I just immediately stopped looking. So when you look at your data as far as the quarter-over-quarter change in purchase intent, now you said that they didn't really have anything on the horizon that excites you, but don't you see an overflow of people that need to replace their iPhones like I did? I waited until after the new year to get a new one just because they are available now. Now, that might up their guidance, but as far as this quarter goes, when you're looking at the data that you have, do you expect it to come in lower than expectations just because last quarter, $6 billion hit to revenue based on the fact that it wasn't demand problem, it was a supply problem?
Yeah, it was a supply problem, but we're also seeing a little bit of an indication that some people just gave up on that and said, "I'll just wait till next year." And a lot of friends of theirs, may have gotten the phone and they saw that it wasn't a huge technological leap compared to the one that they already had in their hand. And so I think there is a window of opportunity for Apple around that keynote event when they announce a new product, especially the new iPhone. Those pre-orders can kind of make or break an entire year cycle. And unfortunately, I feel like Apple may have missed that window of opportunity next year. Now, will that create increased demand in 2022, the September, October of 2022? I think so. But that's a ways off. And I don't think at the moment Wall Street has that type of long-term vision.
Hey, Kevin, did you have another question for Andy? Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's dig a little deeper into this, because after coming off a news cycle where Microsoft spent $75 billion or trying to spend about $68.5 billion to buy Activision, right? We know Apple's got nothing but cash, but their biggest purchase I think they ever made was Beats, right? Think about how tiny that is on the whole spectrum. And how could it be that they've gone this long? There's rumors about an Apple car. That's probably a large investment if they need to do that. Is it just simply they're making their moat bigger by bringing some of their supply in-house, like chips and things like that we're hearing about? What is it? Are there any whispers of anything? We heard about a new car a while ago, but nothing came. What is it? What's the thing? If there is something, right? Or what can they buy, in your opinion, that would help them? Remember, they turned down Elon Musk, right, years ago. So they seem very hesitant to take their foot off first base, Andy.
Yeah, they like to roll their own. They like to build their own. They like to create ecosystems that other people can build inside of, but they don't have to own, but they get the transactional revenue off of. They have a pretty good business model that way. And I'm sure they're thinking, don't screw it up. But I do think that one of the most, kind of burgeoning opportunities is definitely in this digital wallet space. I think that Apple has a lot of credit cards on its Apple Pay system. The usage is really picking up. Will they get into something like crypto or expand that digital wallet offering after seeing, how much success companies like Square and others have had at PayPal in the space? that's the most natural next step for Apple, because it is something that they could build their own, that they could design really well. They could use their design chops, integrate with everything else that they do. So that's one space that I'd be watching for in 2022. If I had to guess Apple's next big bet, I think it'll be somewhere in that digital wallet space.
Yeah, and Andy, to that note, Bloomberg just announced today that MobiV that they bought in 2020 for $100 million, they're starting to expand their payment space in that. That's why you saw Square/Block down today using their NFC card. So that's definitely on the horizon. Now, real quick, Andy, you guys are relatively neutral going into earnings for Apple. I get that, probably due to those supply constraints. But have you seen any data on the Apple Card? Because we keep on hearing the rumblings about it, but we're not going to expect anything until 2025 on it.
Yeah, not that much. I mean, Tesla tends to suck the air out of the room when you talk about these things, and so maybe Apple's running under the radar at this point. I don't know, but it's not something that we see a lot of consumers pining for at this point. It seems like Apple's kind of missed that first competitive step in regards to autos.
All right, great stuff as always, Andy, on Apple ahead of their earnings. Have a great day. Appreciate it.
Thanks, you too. All
right, that's Andy Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio, joining us, giving us the data on Apple ahead of their earnings. But now, Kevin.